Simone Biles holds the title of world's best female gymnast. However, regardless of her prestigious title, she still faces criticism and racism because of her color. She's definitely one of many black individuals whom the Olympics has somewhat failed or treated differently from their counterparts. Simone Biles, Sha'Carri Richardson, and why the Olympics has failed black women. The Olympic Games display the best of the best every 4 years. Athletes defy the odds, break records, and accomplish unfathomable feats. However, the Games have consistently made headlines for the wrong reasons this year, most notably the mistreatment and discrimination of black female athletes. Black women are the common denominator in pretty much all of these stories circulating from the Olympics. From Sha'Carri Richardson's pre-Olympic suspension for smoking legal cannabis to the International Swimming Federation's ban on swim caps designed specifically for black women's hair type. These stringent requirements speak to the athletic world's rampant racism and misogyny, which has a direct impact on how black women perform on the field, even if they have a spot on the field at all. Due to the Caster Semenya rule, Namibian runners Christina Maboba and Beatrice Masalingi were barred from competing in this year's women's 400-meter race due to their natural testosterone levels. Caster Semenya is a South African runner who was originally barred from competing after the World Athletics governing body issued new rules and governing maximum testosterone levels to compete in certain races in 2018. Semenya underwent invasive gender verification testing as well as blood tests to determine her natural testosterone levels. Semenya and various other athletes who are female refuse to take medication to lower their naturally occurring testosterone levels are barred from competing in 400-meter to 1-mile races according to the rules. The notion that an athlete must conform to a testosterone level in order to compete is diametrically opposed to how the Olympics celebrate exceptional levels of human achievement. Nonetheless, these ideas are used against black women who are told they aren't woman enough to compete. Despite the numerous challenges that black female athletes face in the Olympics and elsewhere, there is hope in the fact that they are speaking up, sharing their stories, and actively challenging these discriminatory rules and standards. At the At Liberty podcast, Ria Tabako Mar, director of the ACLU's Women's Rights Project, dives into the various obstacles black women professional athletes come up against in the Olympics, both on the field and off, and how black women across the country are stating unequivocally that they will no longer be pushed off the podium. At the beginning of the podcast, Molly, the host, begins by stating, "So as we mentioned in the introduction in the lead-up to the Olympics and throughout, news has been trickling in about drug testing, mental health needs, uniform regulation, global health situation protocols, and the common denominator that appears throughout all of these stories has been women, and in particular, black women. Can you tell us what unites these stories?" In response, Ria, the guest, said, "We saw the stories come through, ranging from topics as different from natural testosterone levels to natural black hair to swim caps, marijuana. The thing that united all of these disparate stories was the athletes who were targeted, and the athletes who were targeted were, by and large, black women. Some of these rules were used to outright ban black women from participating. You mentioned Sha'Carri Richardson was banned because of her positive marijuana tests, or the Namibian runners Christine Maborna and Beatrice Masalingi were barred because of their natural testosterone levels, and other rules changed the way that black athletes participate, or limited them in ways that forced them to alter their bodies, like the natural swim cap ban, which could force people to alter the natural texture of their hair just to be able to put on a swim cap and compete in the Olympics. As you can see, she touches on some topics where black women especially are significantly disadvantaged for things they cannot control, such as their hair texture or their genetic makeup, such as the Namibian female runners who genetically have a higher level of testosterone. You can see that there is some form of racism continuing to display itself at the Olympics, and although many may not realize this is going on from face value, it is significantly damaging and hindering these black women and their professional careers. Molly asked Ria why it's so important to get these stories out there. Ria responded with, "I think it's so tempting to dismiss each of these examples as one-offs, and in some cases, the Olympic Committee has come forward with explanations that on their face might seem plausible, but it's only when you start to both sort of dig back the explanations in particular cases and then also combine them with what you see happening in a range of other sports that you realize the obstacles these pose to black women, and black women in particular in a country where black women are already among the most marginalized groups because of wage inequality and economic inequality, simply simply to be able to ascend to the Olympics at all is such a tremendous feat for any athlete, but particularly for athletes who are more likely to come from origins and backgrounds where resources are hard to find and where they are unable to hire a fancy trainer or engage in extensive training as a child. And to make it this far only to be blocked because of arbitrary rules or rules that are being enforced in a racist or sexist way just makes it all the more painful. How Biles changed mental health talk in the Olympics. For many, the Tokyo Olympics provided many intriguing storylines that would have been absent in 2020. Sky Brown, a 13-year-old skateboarder from the United Kingdom, is one of the youngest competitors ever. Laurel Hubbard of New Zealand is the first openly transgender woman to compete in the Olympics, and Emory University alum Andrew Wilson became the first male Division III swimmer to represent Team USA in the Olympics. Only 4 days after the Games began, 24-year-old American gymnast Simone Biles, arguably the world's greatest female gymnast, withdrew from the team final and individual all-around competitions. Biles was not in the right mental state to compete without risking serious injury. She had what is known in the gymnastics world as the twisties, which occurs when the body and the mind are out of sync and the athlete cannot seem to tell up from down. Biles has won a total of 25 World Championship medals, as well as 7 Olympic medals. Biles rose to prominence after winning her first gold medal in the women's all-around final at the FIG World Artistic Gymnastics Championships in October 2013. She has carried the enormous weight of being one of the best gymnasts in the world since then. Along with the pressure of performing at her best, Biles revealed in 2018 that she had been sexually abused by Larry Nassar, a former U.S. gymnastics team doctor and convicted sex offender. Only recently, it has been revealed that the FBI had failed to properly investigate Nassar's sexual abuse allegations. Officials kept evidence about Nassar hidden, and USA Gymnastics president Steve Penny made a deal with local FBI agent Jay Abbott to keep the evidence quiet. As she struggles with the trauma of sexual abuse and the physical toll that gymnastics has taken on her body, Biles has described the cumulative effect of training and competing on her body as unreal. One can see how all of the pressures and the trauma piled up and came to a head during the Tokyo Olympics. Simone has an immense amount of pressure put on her shoulders, enough to make anyone stressed out and overwhelmed. Despite this hard time for Simone Biles, it definitely had a huge silver lining. Since her shocking departure citing mental health issues as the cause, this sparked plenty of conversations about mental health and has since changed the way many view professional sports and mental health and how they affect one another. Her own struggles made a U.S. women's basketball player feel deeply connected to Simone Biles' decision to prioritize her own well-being over sporting glory. Biles withdrew from team competition in the middle of the event and then chose not to defend her 2016 all-around gold medal in Tokyo. Another professional athlete, Damian Lillard of the Portland Trail Blazers, a member of the United States men's basketball team, said his success and salary do not shield him from personal struggles. The discussion sparked by Biles made him reflect on his own journey. When people describe what depression looks like or battling mental health issues, sometimes I think back like, man, I had a couple of those moments. I just didn't recognize what was happening, he said. He touched on how dangerous social media can be, especially during a very pressure-ridden, intense time like the Olympics. Lillard stated about the topic, "We are in an era where everybody has access to us," Lillard said. In the past, being a professional athlete or being an Olympian, you were in front of the world, but everybody couldn't just tweet you and everybody couldn't slander you on Twitter, and you become a trending topic and talk about you on Instagram, and the internet just wasn't such a powerful place. However, Biles is actually not the first athlete to withdraw due to a lack of mental fortitude. Naomi Osaka, a 23-year-old American tennis player, withdrew from the French Open in May due to mental health issues. Osaka stated that she has struggled with depression and anxiety since defeating U.S. tennis legend Serena Williams in the 2018 U.S. Open final. Osaka, who is young herself in comparison to her competitors, has since been recorded as the highest-paid female athlete in history. And despite her success at such an early age, Osaka was under so much pressure and struggled with her newfound fame. There you have it. All you need to know about how Black women are marginalized and discriminated against within the Olympic Games and why this needs to change now. Along with this, we also discussed how Simone Biles has single-handedly changed the discussion surrounding mental health and the Olympic Games. But we are curious to hear your thoughts. What do you think about the Olympics and the discrimination some women have been facing? Thanks for watching.